Hey everybody, what's up and welcome back for another episode of Let's Talk About It. My name's Amy and I've got a special, unique episode for you today. It's a bit of a different format than we're used to running on the show, but I've got two guests for you. The first is Francis Odum. He is the founder and principal analyst at Software Analyst Cybersecurity Research. And I also have David Torres on. He is the director of sales engineering here at D3 Security. In this episode, we are giving Francis a demo of Morpheus AI, our new AI SOC platform, and getting his live reactions to the platform, the use cases, and how this is going to change the future for SOC teams. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. My name is Amy, and I'm joined with Francis Odum and Dave Torres today. Francis, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming. Could you please introduce yourself?
Great to be here with you, David and Amy. Yes, my name is Francis. I'm the founder, CEO, principal analyst at the Software Analyst Cyber Research. We're an emerging research and advisory firm focused on security operations center, but also we do a lot of work around cloud, data, as well as identity security. So it's nice to be here, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you. And yeah, we brought you here today because you have this knowledge of the entire cybersecurity ecosystem, especially within the AI SOC landscape with the new report that you've just published. So we've got David Torres on as well. He's our director of sales engineering. He's going to run us through a demo today and we're going to show Francis Morpheus for the first time. So David, I'll pass it over to you. You can take it away.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Francis, for joining us today. Thank you, Amy, for putting this on. This demo is going to be specifically broken down into two significant parts. The first one would be from the AI playbook creation aspect of things. So think of those that are creating automation across the security teams or creating specific workflows on a day-to-day basis. And then the other half is going to be from an analyst perspective. So with that being said, let's just start to create some automation. Well, through natural language, you can essentially just copy and paste each step, leveraging each integration that you would like to leverage for that use case, and you can create the playbook that way. Or you can go ahead and leverage our advanced generator. So let's just create a quick playbook here. So leveraging the advanced generator, what I did was I went ahead and I selected a specific ingest data source. In this case, my endpoint security, so CrowdStrike. As I scroll down, Morpheus is going to understand the APIs it has available to it. So essentially here, we can see all the integrations that we have to leverage, not just to create a incident response playbook, but to actually leverage all the APIs and all the integrations to proactively threat hunt in my organization's environment. So once I click generate, what happens is Morpheus is going to grab the alerts that are coming in from the endpoint. So essentially, this is going to be a CrowdStrike alert. Morpheus is going to grab it, it's going to open it up, and it's going to look at the context of it. So that's one of the biggest differentiators that we have. It's context aware. So based on the context of that alert, it's going to understand, okay, I need to start to query my endpoint vertically. So north-south, down to, let's say, the child process, or start to do initial analysis at the endpoint. Now, once Morpheus is done querying the endpoint, it's then going to look around left and right, so start to move horizontally across your whole security stack to start to threat hunt that way. And it's going to start to query and ask for additional details from the SIM, from the NDR solutions. Again, we're going to be able to leverage threat intelligence integrations here in order to do enrichment as well of the data that we're seeing. And at the end of the day, this is what you're going to be presented with. You're going to be getting a dynamic playbook. You're not going to be getting just a static playbook created leveraging AI. So what I mean by that is that it's going to be able to dynamically change based on the alert structures that change from the vendor specific side, as well as the APIs that might change as well. So once you create this sort of playbook, it's kind of a set and forget type of scenario where previously you would create these static playbooks and you would always have to spend time tuning, managing, changing them based on any changes or any updates that threat actors are doing based on the type of use case that you've created. So again, efficiency is everything with us. We're always trying to make SOC teams much more mature and much more efficient at the end of the day. In the past, you would have to go in, hard code some of these tasks to make any of those changes. We can go ahead and leverage our natural language prompt to edit, tune, manage, or change anything inside of the playbook. If I would have wanted to make a change in the past, it would have taken me days or weeks. Not anymore. I can just essentially get an idea of what this workflow has accomplished for me, as well as get a great summarization of the playbook that Morpheus created. But let's just say I would like to create a very basic Slack notification here. So let's just say I want, whenever this playbook triggers, to go ahead and send a Slack notification to my team. All right, it's going into the reasoning. All right, so this is where that context piece comes into play here as well, Francis, because it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to create this for you. It's actually saying, okay, it seems like this is what you want me to create. This is the best position, I think, in the playbook workflow. It would make most sense. Do you think this would be a good location? And then this is where it starts to get the input from us, right? The yes and the no. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, and then it's going to ask, I have multiple Slack channels. Which one would it want me to target for this notification task? And I'm going to say malware response. And then it goes to work. It says, okay, let me go ahead and create this task for you. Probably took, if I wasn't explaining everything, could have accomplished this in 30 seconds, right? And of course, this comes into play with other things in mind, right? You can leverage this natural language prompt for anything.
Love it. That's actually really impressive. Very cool. This is really cool. This is good stuff. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is just the context-aware intelligence, just the amount of context that you guys have. And I mean, this is the benefit of having the breadth of integrations that you guys have to all of those different multiple solutions. And I think that's definitely a big one in terms of being able to analyze different parts, because at the end of the day, one of the biggest challenges we see, and we even hear from many practitioners, many leaders, is how well do you understand my environment, one, and how much context are you actually able to get from all of my different solutions, especially when you're dealing with large enterprises with lots of hybrid environments. And so I think that's definitely that's a very big piece. And I love the ability for how you could actually interact very closely with it, in terms of how you could actually interact with Morpheus. I feel like from just the prompts that you actually had, you could very easily create a lot of whether it's like questions, or think about even like the Slack notifications too, right? Instead of the system just blindly create notifications, it actually analyzes, where in the playbook workflow where a Slack notification makes the most sense or is actually quite effective, and the analyst could actually ask for further confirmations. I like this. This is very good. The whole reason for all of this is it just creates better operational efficiency for stock analysts. Like, stock analysts are already bombarded with just a lot of different tools, a lot of different solutions, a lot of different alerts, and it was the ability for Morpheus to be able to synthesize for specific alerts that actually needs an analyst to actually look at it. Being able to do all of that synthesis and giving them that context, I think is critical. So this is good. We speak to a lot of different practitioners in the market, and right now everyone's trying to understand the role of SOARs, right? Like, one thing I have seen is the fact that I've been tracking this, I've been tracking the evolution of SOARs for quite a long time. And obviously now we have a lot of vendors who are adding some AI capabilities to existing SOAR, and and maybe they're giving it a new wrapper around this. But there are also some vendors too who are also rethinking the entire workflow of an analyst and actually thinking about how AI could actually reshape all of those. So maybe you can help me understand, how do you guys think about how traditional SOARs evolve with like now the agentic SOC, like AI-based SOC or AI SOC platforms today? Do you guys see this all morphing into one cohesive platform, which maybe could be an example of an investigation playbook like what you've just shown with Morpheus AI? Or do you also see this, could you actually see this becoming somewhat separate platforms, right? Because some vendors out there on the market, there are some people who view it as like, hey, this is our SOC type playbooks, and then hey, this is our AI SOC for your tier one task. So how do you guys think about it, and how are you guys wanting to position Morpheus AI for people who are trying to do people who might have had stores, right? Traditional
Hmm.
stores, enterprises, and are like, hey, we love all of these features that you just showed us. Should they replace what they have? Should they integrate it? What would you guys' approach to that be?
The way that we approach things and the way that we've built our AI is very different than other vendors. Everyone is more of the agentic AI approach, has taken more an agentic AI approach from the development aspect. What we've decided to do is create our own framework specific to cyber operations and have actually embedded our AI into our solution. Now, there's a lot of benefits to that, right? You're also going to be able to leverage those integrations, those APIs, the capabilities of a SOAR platform for the utilization and the generation of workflows and playbook automation. But then also leveraging those APIs, you're going to be able to threat hunt by leveraging natural language, in which I'm going to showcase a little bit in just a little bit. But the best way that I like to explain our approach that's different than a lot of people is instead of us, it's great to get initial findings. It's good to get, initial analysis on a triggered incident from the analyst perspective, and then have a bot help you get to the point of closing that incident, right? But at the end of the day, whenever you're met with asking a lot of questions before you get to the point of saying that this is actually a true positive or a false positive, that could take a very long time. And that's something that SOAR platforms have been already fixing for a very long time. So whenever I get into the seat, I was an analyst in the past. So whenever I get into the seat, the last thing I would want to do is waste time. So while I do have an incident that triggers from the tier one perspective, let's say, or L1 perspective, I still need to do intelligence gathering by continually to ask questions to the bot. And that's essentially what is happening with some of the competitors. So essentially, everyone on the team is going to be starting their investigation from a tier two level on. No longer will you be doing hash verification checks, IP reputation checking, correlation of analysis. You're not going to be doing a lot of these mundane things and manual processes anymore. And the way that our AI works is we wrap it all together and we give it to the analyst in a digestible manner, in which you see here today, up to the point where if you need to query for additional details, you also have the benefit to query and prompt Morpheus through natural language and by utilizing all the APIs that we have available to us. So that's the way that we approach it, right? We, in a way, we kind of do a lot of the load. We take a lot of the workload away from the analyst, a lot of the mundane things. We paint a great picture of the attack methodology. We present it to the analyst in a very digestible manner. And if they choose to prompt out for additional details or additional questions, here is this prompt available to them. It's not the other way around. We don't give them a prompt and then let them figure out and piece together the story of this attack. We do everything for you. The best way that I like to describe Morpheus is essentially you're going to have the best virtual analysts on your team, helping you, enabling you, enhancing you, and walking you through each step from start to finish and the closure of an incident.
I love it. Good, very good. I like that approach. Really interesting. Really, really cool.
Okay, now listen. I did remove some of the demo parts, and I am going to encourage you to book a real demo.
Right. So as an analyst, like I mentioned to you, you have the option to query for additional details. So what I decided to do was I said, okay, cool. So lab one, PC one, executed for mimikatz.exe. Let me look at my Sentinel environment in the last 30 days for the alerts regarding host name lab one, PC one. So I went ahead and I ran this natural language query. And what happens here is efficiency. Again, I don't need to leave D3 to go into my Sentinel environment to then create a query to query in my Sentinel environment for lab 1 PC1 host name alerts for the last 30 days. Since I have the integrations, I have the API, I can query into any of those environments using natural language.
I like that. I think that's huge, right? Because in a situation where the agent rejects it and or closes it, and let's just say based off how the enterprise thinks about that specific workflow here, or this, hey, this is how we actually look through Falcon and Defender, you could terminate something or you could close something that should be urgent or not urgent. And so I think being able to give that the analyst back that final control, but then they have all that context to be able to make that final decision or prompt it for additional further investigation. I think that's a huge value add. So it's good.
So I think at this point, I'd like to ask Francis a little bit of questions in that you've seen a little bit of our AI generated playbooks. So I want to start there and say, with those AI generated playbooks, how do you think that's going to change how analysts are operating in the future?
It's a very interesting approach. We had like different approaches in terms of how we think about all the different vendors are, because there are a number of vendors out there who are just, they don't have the historical data that, like, let's say D3, the historical amounts of integrations and a lot of those. And so for those guys, they build up an existing LLMs and they have like maybe a multi-agent reasoning system that's going on and doing a lot of triage. But and what I'm hearing, obviously, from just the approach here is you're taking your existing playbooks and just further enriching those and then creating additional levels of context. And it almost just helps the analysts become better. And to your point, you start from almost a tier 2, tier 3 level where you actually could interact with this and use a natural language. So I think this is a very interesting approach. I think how I would look at it as being in terms of how Morpheus actually helps. I mean, it definitely saves a lot of time on a lot of the traditional manually correlating data across different tools. You know, what's my EDR saying if I'm trying to correlate my EDR maybe to an identity log. So it really prevents a lot of that. It prevents a lot of the time that's being spent on adjusting your playbooks, right? There's the static world of source, which I kind of brought up early on, is you spend a lot of time tuning and readjusting for your playbooks, especially if certain things are not firing or specific automation scripts are not working quite well. And so I think with this approach, what I see here, you know, it's really, it cuts out a lot of the basic elementary time, and all that context is already provided, and then it gives the analyst the ability to just interact with Morpheus and get a lot of those questions. So long story short, I mean, I do think this, you could see triage and investigation, you know, going from maybe weeks to, hey, a couple hours now, right? In terms of the time spent to investigate the scenario, situation. So that would be definitely a big one for me. And obviously, the analyst now is better equipped to deal with much more complex threat analysis. Obviously, there's still a lot of human in the loop. And I think there's a human in the loop component to this, right? It's not saying, hey, you know what, this is going to be a completely automated type workflow, which has its own, like, I think we've talked about this in early podcasts about, is there going to be a fully automated SOC, you know, but I like this. This is actually empowering the analysts, right? It's actually speeding down their time to investigation.
For now, who knows what the future holds?
Yes, I know.
All right,
I mean,
Francis, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. If we want to find you and what you're working on, and if we want to find that AI SOC report, where can we look?
Absolutely. Well, this is phenomenal, by the way, and this is great. So thank you again, David, and thank you, Amy, for having me here. I think this is pretty cool what you guys are building here. Yes, on myself, you can find me at softwareanalystsubstack.com. You'll see a lot of our research publications, and right now, we talked actually about what D3's Morpheus AI is currently doing within our AI SOC report and our market landscape for 2025. And so we touched on a few of these things. So for readers who are actually interested in just D3, the market, the dynamics, or any of the work that we do in the stock, you can find it on softwareanalystsubstack.com.
All right, I'll put those links in the show notes. Thanks, everyone.
thanks,
All right,
everyone.
thank you very much.
Everyone.
If you like this episode of the podcast and you want to see a more full, robust version of the demo, I will put the link in the show notes for you to book a demo of Morpheus with our sales engineering team. Thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time.